Alright, let me set up the context. We're going to be listening to Shad, and he's going to give us a critique of the throne room. We're going to see he makes quite a few mistakes, and at least he's very honest. He's clearly on Mauler's side, but we're going to skip Mauler hatred and concentrate on Shad. But Mauler is going to come in a weird way, because what he's saying is actually going to destroy Mauler's argument, ironically. But we'll listen.
Imperial Guard, because the First Order is in the Empire, and so the First Order Guard, Snoke's Guard, I don't care, I'm calling them the Imperial Guard, okay? Now, the first thing that we notice here is that neither Rey nor Kylo are using any guard positions. They're just holding their swords to their side. That's not good. The Imperial Guard are moving in, and they don't really have any guard positions either. And on top of that, what we're seeing here is some very big telegraphs. Oh my goodness, that guy coming in to fight Kylo is telegraphing massively as well. You see this guy with the double knife spear thing coming to attack Rey? He is leading in with his shoulder, just basically trying to tell Rey, and I think actually this is a filmmaking thing, this is the stuntman trying to tell Ridley Scott, yes, I'm coming in to attack, so you need to be on point to defend. Now Rey just led in with a big wide swing of her own, looking at his frame by frame, really telegraphing her own hit as well.
So this is a little curious. He's actually admitting straight out a major mistake getting Daisy Ridley confused with Ridley Scott. And it's interesting, if you follow Mauler's logic, then pretty much this whole thing is worthless now, right? Because you made such a huge error, we're entitled to just say, well, the rest of the thing is just garbage. And he freely admits, well, I don't know filmmaking that much, but I'm still going to talk about it, right? Shad is an expert in the Middle Ages, but we're like, yeah, that's not very relevant, especially not in the throne room's fight scene, so why would that matter? And finally, he's like, oh, I like the EFAP and I like Mauler, but here's my unbiased assessment. Okay, so as a logician, he's not very good. And this is important, because again, you can be very knowledgeable in history, as I am as well, but that doesn't mean you're going to produce good arguments. But okay, fine, let's be total devil's advocate. Okay, fine, he made several major mistakes, but that's fine. I mean, it's a double standard, but they get to do that. The EFAP people can make mistakes as much as they want, but not Ryan, not I, not just Wright, not Patrick. Okay, that's fine, double standard. All right, but what is the argument? Well, even in this little small segment, he is going on and on about, well, she's telegraphing the movements while she's making all these wild swings. Well, there we go. Oh, okay. Okay, now let's concede the point, but then problems arise, because Mauler is saying, well, Daisy's a Mauler. She's perfect, she has no flaws. And you've just said, no, actually, Rey's a terrible fighter. She's always telegraphing. She doesn't know how to fight at all. Well, then she can't be a Mauler, because now she has a flaw. She can't fight. But let's take this insane logic to its clown conclusion. So it's like, okay, no. The argument would be this, that she is a Mauler because she can't fight. These guards should have killed her, or at least fatally injured her. But hey, she's Mauler, so she's, able to survive the encounter. But there's a big problem with that, because Kylo is also alive. So you'd be honor-bound to say they're either both Maulers, or neither one is Mauler. And notice it's actually the same with Kylo. Kylo gets a little bit more injured, but he does not get fatally hurt, right? He doesn't lose a limb, he doesn't lose an extremity, so they're pretty much on even plane in terms of physical health. So is Kylo Mauler? So at the very best, giving the argument every concession, we're just at an impasse. It seems like, well, she's Mauler and she's an incompetent fighter from your perspective, right? It's fine to invoke these words like objectivity, but they don't mean much, especially in this context. I mean, if you think the Star Wars fights were ever realistic, that's pretty bad thesis from the get-go. But we'll go through it very quickly. So if we look at the other fights, you'll notice over and over again there's a lot of obvious symbolism. Perhaps one of the most obvious is the cross, right? The cross is made by the lightsabers over and over and over again. In fact, in one shot, Anakin is clearly, positioned in a way where we see different lightsabers with different colors. It could be a coincidence, but it seems pretty obvious Lucas is trying to communicate something about the message about how the lightsabers reflect the people and the movement of the story. And also, if we go back to the original trilogy, right, there's really no real fighting in the first film, because the person couldn't move in the Darth Vader suit. It was just almost impossible to move because, again, they didn't have the time or money to work out the movements. And if you look at the special editions, you know, Lucas tried to improve on it, but it's pretty obvious, like CGI and manipulation and everything. And it still looks kind of silly because now everything's sped up and they're making all these little movements. And it's like, yeah, listen, the fights are not meant to communicate this grand fighting style all the time. They're meant primarily as metaphors. And Shad is especially weird because he praises the Mustafar sequence. And he gets a lot of things wrong there, and we'll do something on that. But what's really puzzling is he doesn't even care about very major issues like, well, you know, a volcano's interrupting, yet magically their costumes are not turning on fire. Like, how is it possible now that the heat has increased so much, they're not automatically burning their costumes? Or, you know, or why are they coming into the fight without armor? Why is Obi-Wan even fighting Anakin? Why does he just shoot him with tons of blaster cannons? And the answer is, listen, these aren't logical constructs. They're metaphors. I mean, the throne room fight is the best example. You'd have to literally, using your own standard, you're blind as a bat. You notice the guards? They're red. You notice the room? They're red. You notice Kylo's weapon? It's red. Now, you think that's all a coincidence? No, it's intentionally put up there to evoke a certain emotional, psychological state. If you get into the scene, you'll enjoy that. But if you don't like it, that's fine. But that's still a subjective assessment that you don't like how, quote, there's a ton of fantasy elements in that sequence. But we're still stuck with the first argument. You have to show us that realism is a good thing. But that can't be correct because it would take the realism argument all the way through. You made a major mistake. So there we are. Alright, Star Wars Analyzed on Shad's alleged critique of The Last Jedi.